She saved a dying stranger bleeding out on a mountain road during a violent storm. What she didn't know was that this single act of mercy would pull her into a dangerous world of betrayal, bullets, and blood debts. Her quiet life was about to shatter in ways she never imagined. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The rain hammered down like bullets against the windshield. Elena gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles white as she navigated the winding mountain road. The storm had come out of nowhere, turning the drive home into a nightmare. She could barely see 3 feet ahead. Then she saw him. A dark shape sprawled across the asphalt. At first she thought it was a deer, but as her headlights cut through the rain she realized it was a man. He was wearing a suit, an expensive one, and he wasn't moving. Elena's heart jumped into her throat. She slammed on the brakes. The car skidded slightly on the wet road before coming to a stop. For a moment she just sat there, hands shaking, staring at the body through the rain-streaked glass. Call the police. That was what she should do. That was what any normal person would do. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the years she'd spent as an ER nurse, back when saving lives had been her entire world. Maybe it was the isolation of these mountains, where help could take an hour to arrive. Maybe it was something else entirely. She grabbed her phone and threw open the car door. The rain soaked her instantly, plastering her hair to her face. She ran to the man, dropping to her knees beside him. He was alive, barely. His chest rose and fell in shallow, struggling breaths. Blood pooled beneath him, mixing with the rainwater and running in dark streams across the road. "Sir, can you hear me?" Elena pressed her fingers to his neck, checking his pulse. It was weak but there. His eyes snapped open. They were dark, intense, even through the haze of pain. His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "No police," he rasped. His voice was rough, desperate. "Don't call them, they'll kill me." Elena froze. "What? Who will kill you?" "Please," blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "They're coming back if you call the police. I'm dead, just leave me." But Elena couldn't leave him. She'd spent 5 years watching people die on operating tables, in ambulances, in emergency rooms. She'd quit that life after her sister Lily died, retreated to this cabin in the mountains to escape the constant reminder of death. But old instincts didn't just disappear. "I'm not leaving you," she said firmly. "And I'm not calling the police. But you need help right now or you're going to bleed out on this road. Can you move?" He tried to nod, then winced. "Shot twice." "I can see that." Elena looked around. The road was empty, dark, no headlights in either direction. "My car, we need to get you to my car." She didn't know why she was doing this. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was insane. This man was clearly involved in something dangerous, something criminal. But the nurse in her, the part that had taken an oath years ago to do no harm, wouldn't let her drive away. With difficulty, she helped him to his feet. He was tall, well over 6 feet and heavily built. Dead weight. He tried to help, but his legs kept giving out. Blood ran down his side, soaking through his white shirt, dripping onto the ground. "Come on," Elena grunted, half dragging him toward her old sedan. "Just a few more steps." They made it, barely. She shoved him into the back seat and he collapsed with a groan of agony. Elena slammed the door and ran back to the driver's seat. Her hands were covered in his blood. It was warm, sticky. She'd forgotten that feeling. She started the engine and took off down the mountain road, driving faster than she should have in this weather. Her cabin was only 10 minutes away. 10 minutes. He could survive 10 minutes. "Stay with me," she called back to him. "Don't you dare pass out. What's your name?" "Julian," he managed. "Julian Vane." "I'm Elena, Elena Cross. Just keep talking to me, Julian. Stay awake." Where are you taking me?" "My cabin. I have medical supplies there. I used to be a nurse." He let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Lucky me." "Yeah, lucky you." The drive felt like an eternity. Every second that passed, Elena expected to see headlights behind them. Whoever had shot Julian, they might still be out there. They might be following, but the road stayed empty. When they finally reached her cabin, she pulled right up to the front porch. No time for the driveway. She jumped out and hauled Julian from the back seat. He was conscious but fatting fast. His skin had gone pale, almost gray. Inside, she laid him out on her kitchen table. It was solid oak, sturdy. It would have to do. She grabbed scissors from a drawer and started cutting away his shirt and jacket. Expensive fabric fell away in bloody strips. 2 gunshot wounds, one in his left shoulder, one in his right hip. The shoulder wound was bleeding steadily but not arterial. The hip was worse, much worse. The bullet had gone deep and she could see it was still inside him. Elena's hands moved on autopilot. She grabbed her old medical kit from the hall closet, the one she'd brought with her when she left the hospital 3 years ago. She'd kept it out of habit, never thinking she'd actually need it again. "This is going to hurt," she warned Julian. "I don't have anything for the pain, no anesthesia, nothing." His eyes met hers. "Do it." She worked fast. First, she cleaned the wounds as best she could with what she had: antiseptic, gauze, clean water. Then came the hard part. The bullet in his hip had to come out. If she left it, infection would set in within hours. He'd be dead by morning. Elena grabbed a pair of forceps from her kit. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. She'd thought she'd lost this ability to shut everything out and just focus on the work. But it came back like riding a bike. "Bite down on this." She shoved a leather belt between his teeth. Then she went in. Julian's body went rigid. A muffled scream escaped around the belt. His hands clamped onto the edges of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. Sweat poured down his face. Elena felt the forceps connect with metal. Carefully, she maneuvered the instrument, getting a grip on the bullet. Blood welled up around her hands. She ignored it. The whole world narrowed down to this one moment, this one task. "Got it." She pulled the bullet free and dropped it into a metal bowl with a clink. Julian went limp, chest heaving. The belt fell from his mouth. "Done," Elena said. "The worst is over." She packed both wounds with gauze, applied pressure, and wrapped them tight with bandages. It wasn't pretty, but it would hold. Then she started an IV line, hooking him up to a bag of saline from her supplies. He'd lost a lot of blood, too much, but his pulse was stronger now. Finally, she stepped back. Her hands were shaking. Her shirt was covered in blood. The kitchen looked like a crime scene. Julian's eyes found hers. "Thank you," he whispered. "Don't thank me yet. You're not out of the woods." "Why did you help me?" Elena looked at him, really looked at him. Even half dead and covered in blood, there was something about him, something dangerous, something magnetic. "Because leaving someone to die on a road isn't who I am," she said quietly. "No matter who they are. Even if they're a criminal. Even then." Julian closed his eyes. "I owe you my life." "You don't owe me anything. Just don't die on my kitchen table. I just cleaned this place." That got a weak smile from him. Then he passed out. Elena spent the next hour cleaning up. She moved Julian to the guest bedroom, checking his vitals every few minutes. The bleeding had stopped. His pulse was steady. Color was starting to return to his face. He'd make it, probably. She burned his ruined clothes in the fireplace, watching the expensive fabric turn to ash. Then she cleaned the blood from her kitchen floor, from her hands, from under her fingernails. She took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the last 3 hours. When she came out, wrapped in a robe with her hair dripping wet, she found Julian awake. He was sitting up in bed, looking pale but alert. "You should be resting," Elena said. "I've had worse." Somehow I believed that. She sat down in a chair by the window. Outside, the storm was finally passing. Dawn light filtered through the trees. "So, Julian Vane, are you going to tell me what happened out there?" Julian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "How much do you want to know?" "Everything. You're in my house. I just spent half the night pulling bullets out of you. I think I deserve the truth." "The truth might get you killed." "I'll take my chances." Julian studied her face. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he started talking. "I run an organization," he said carefully. "A family business, you could say. We operate in Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver. Import, export, some legitimate ventures, some less legitimate." "Your mafia," Elena said flatly. "That's a crude term, but yes, I suppose I am." "And someone shot you twice, let me guess, rival gang." "Worse," Julian's expression darkened. "Someone I trusted, someone I considered a brother. His name is Marco Santini. We grew up together. I made him my second-in-command 2 years ago, my underboss. And tonight he tried to take everything from me." Elena leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "There was a meeting, neutral ground. Marco said we needed to discuss some problems with our operations in Portland. But when I got there, it was a setup. His men were waiting. They opened fire the moment I walked through the door." "How did you get away?" "I had my driver, David, good man. He took 3 bullets from me, gave me time to run. I made it to my car and drove as far as I could before I crashed. Then I started walking. That's when you found me." "Your driver, is he?" "Dead." Julian's voice was flat. "Marco made sure of that." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. This was real. This wasn't some movie or TV show. This man in her guest room was part of a world where people killed each other over power and money, where loyalty meant nothing. "Why did Marco do it?" she asked. "Because he wanted what I have. Power, respect, control of the Vane family operations. He probably thought killing me would be easy, that the others would fall in line once I was gone." "Will they?" Julian shook his head. "Not all of them. I have people who are loyal to me. Real loyalty, not the fake kind Marco showed. But right now they think I'm dead. Marco will be spreading that story, consolidating his position. I need to stay hidden until I can figure out my next move." "And that's why you didn't want me to call the police." "The police wouldn't help. Half of them are on someone's payroll. If Marco found out I survived, he'd come finish the job. And he'd kill anyone who helped me." Elena stood up and walked to the window. The sun was rising over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, peaceful, the complete opposite of the violence and danger that had just crashed into her life. "How long do you need to hide?" she asked. "A few days, maybe a week, just until I can contact my people, the ones I trust." "And you trust me?" Julian met her eyes. "You saved my life, that counts for something." "I saved you because you were dying, not because I want to be part of your world." "I know, and I'll leave as soon as I can, I promise." Elena wanted to throw him out right then. Every instinct screamed at her to call the police, to let them deal with this mess. But another part of her, the part that had pulled that bullet from his hip, that had worked for an hour to keep him alive, couldn't do it. "Fine," she said. "You can stay, but you follow my rules. You don't leave this cabin. You don't make any calls. You don't do anything to bring your trouble to my door. Understood?" "Understood." "And when you're healed enough to walk, you leave. You disappear, and you never come back here." "Agreed." Elena nodded and left the room. She needed coffee, and maybe something stronger. The next 2 days passed in a strange kind of tension. Elena changed Julian's bandages twice a day, checking for infection. He was healing faster than she expected. Strong constitution. By the 3rd day, he was walking around the cabin, testing his strength. They didn't talk much at first. Elena kept her distance, treating him like any other patient, professional, detached. But slowly, inevitably, the walls started to come down. It happened one evening when Julian found her sitting on the porch, staring out at the trees. He sat down beside her without asking. "Why do you live out here alone?" he asked. "That's none of your business." "Fair enough." He was quiet for a moment. "Then I lost someone too, someone important. I can see it in your eyes." Elena turned to look at him. "What makes you think I lost someone?" "Because I recognize that look, that emptiness. I've seen it in the mirror every day for the past 3 years." Despite herself, Elena felt something crack open inside her chest. "My sister," she said quietly. "Lily. She was killed by a drunk driver 2 years ago. She was only 19. I was working a double shift at the hospital when it happened. I couldn't save her, couldn't even say goodbye." "I'm sorry." "Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back." Julian nodded slowly. "My wife, Sarah, cancer. It took her in 6 months. I had all the money in the world. Could afford the best doctors, the best treatments. None of it mattered. She died anyway." They sat in silence for a while, two broken people sharing the weight of their grief. "Is that why you do what you do?" Elena asked finally. "The criminal stuff because you lost her?" "No, I was already in this life when I met Sarah. She knew what I was. She loved me anyway." Julian's voice was soft. "After she died, I threw myself into work, built the family into something bigger, stronger. I thought if I could control everything around me, I could keep more people from getting hurt. Stupid, right? Not stupid, human." "And you, why did you leave nursing?" "Because I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't watch more people die. Couldn't fail to save them. So I ran up here to the middle of nowhere, thinking if I just stayed away from people, I wouldn't have to feel that pain again." "How's that working out for you?" Elena let out a bitter laugh. "Not great, considering I just performed surgery on my kitchen table." "Sorry about that." "Stop apologizing. I'm the one who made the choice to help you." Julian looked at her with something like respect in his eyes. "You're stronger than you think, Elena Cross. And you're more human than you pretend to be, Julian Vane." That night something shifted between them. The walls came down a little more. They talked for hours, sharing stories about their pasts, their losses, their regrets. Elena found herself laughing for the first time in months at Julian's dry wit and unexpected humor. He found himself opening up in ways he hadn't since Sarah died. It was dangerous. Elena knew it was dangerous, but she couldn't seem to stop herself. On the fourth day, everything changed. Elena was making breakfast when she noticed something wrong. Julian was standing at the window, his body tense, his expression dark. "What is it?" she asked. "Car, end of your driveway, black SUV. It's been sitting there for 5 minutes." Elena's blood went cold. She moved to the window and looked out. Sure enough, there was a vehicle parked where the dirt road met the highway, just sitting there, watching. "Marco's men," she whispered. "Has to be, they found me." "How? We've been so careful. You haven't made any calls, haven't left the cabin." "They must have tracked the area where I disappeared, been searching every property within miles." Julian turned to her, his face grim. "Elena, listen to me very carefully. You need to hide, right now. There's a closet in the back bedroom. Get in it and don't come out no matter what you hear." "What about you?" "I'll handle this." "You can barely walk. You're still healing. You can't fight them." "I don't have a choice." Julian grabbed her shoulders. "Please, just hide. If they find you here with me, they'll kill you too. I won't let that happen." Elena wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't up for debate. She ran to the back bedroom and squeezed into the closet, pulling the door almost shut. Through the crack, she could see into the hallway. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. A moment later, she heard the front door crash open. Heavy footsteps, multiple men. "Well, well," a voice she didn't recognize, cold, amused. "Julian Vane, I have to admit I'm impressed. We all thought you were dead in a ditch somewhere." Marco should have made sure of that himself. Julian's voice was steady, despite the danger. "Marco's a little busy right now, taking over your empire. but he wanted me to tie up loose ends. And you, my friend, are definitely a loose end. So you're here to kill me. At least have the guts to do it face to face." The man laughed. "Oh, I'll do more than that. First, I'm going to make you watch while we search this place. See, we know someone helped you. Someone pulled those bullets out, patched you up. And Marco wants to know who. He doesn't like the idea of anyone else getting involved in family business." "There's no one else. I did it myself." "Really? You performed surgery on yourself? Come on, Julian. We both know that's impossible." There was a pause. Then Elena heard something that made her stomach drop, the sound of a gun cocking. "Last chance. Tell me who helped you, or I start shooting holes in this pretty little cabin until I find them." Julian said nothing. The first gunshot nearly made Elena scream. It was deafening in the enclosed space. She pressed her hand over her mouth, biting down on her palm to stay quiet. More shots followed. They were shooting randomly into rooms, into walls. One bullet punched through the closet door, missing her head by inches. Then she heard Julian grunt in pain. They'd hit him, or worse. Elena couldn't take it anymore. These men were going to kill Julian, and then they were going to find her anyway. If she was going to die, she wasn't going to die hiding in a closet. She burst out of the closet and ran into the living room. The scene that greeted her was chaos. 3 men in dark suits surrounded Julian. He was on his knees, blood running from a cut on his forehead. One of the men had a gun pressed to the back of his head. They all turned to stare at her. "Well, well," said the leader, a man with slick-back hair and dead eyes. "There's the Good Samaritan. Pretty thing, isn't she?" "Leave her alone," Julian snarled. "This has nothing to do with her." "Oh, I think it has everything to do with her. Marco's going to want to have a little chat with the woman who saved your life." The leader smiled. It was a terrible smile. "Grab her." One of the men moved toward Elena. She backed away, but there was nowhere to go. He grabbed her arm and yanked her forward. She struggled, kicked, but he was too strong. "Elena, I'm sorry," Julian said. His voice was broken. "I'm so sorry I brought this to you." The leader laughed. "How touching. Too bad neither of you will be around to worry about it much longer. Take them both to the car. Marco wants to handle this personally." They dragged Julian to his feet. He tried to fight, but he was weak from his injuries. They zip-tied his hands behind his back, did the same to Elena. Then they started hauling them toward the door. That's when they heard it, the sound of engines, multiple vehicles approaching fast. The leader's expression changed from confidence to confusion, to fear in the space of a heartbeat. "What the—" The window exploded inward as someone fired from outside. The man holding Elena went down, a red hole appearing in his chest. Julian threw himself sideways, taking the leader down with him in a tackle that must have reopened every wound he had. More gunfire. The front door burst open and men in tactical gear poured in. But these weren't Marco's men. They moved with military precision, taking out the 3 hitmen in seconds. When the smoke cleared, Julian was on the floor, breathing hard but alive. Elena was pressed against the wall, her hands still bound. A man stepped through the doorway. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running down his left cheek. He looked at Julian and shook his head. "Boss," he said, "you look like hell." "Leo," Julian let out a breathless laugh, "your timing is impeccable. You left me a message, took me a while to track you down." Leo's eyes moved to Elena. "Who's this?" "The woman who saved my life. Cut her loose." Leo pulled out a knife and sliced through Elena's zip ties. She stumbled forward, her hands numb. "Thank you," she gasped. "Don't thank me yet," Leo said grimly. "Marco's men are going to figure out what happened here. We need to move, now." Julian struggled to his feet. Blood was soaking through his shirt again. Elena moved to help him, her medical instincts overriding everything else. "You're bleeding," she said. "I'll live, thanks to you." Julian looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her heart skip. "Elena, you need to come with us. If you stay here, Marco will send more men. They'll kill you for helping me." "I can't just leave. This is my home." "Your home is a crime scene now. Please, trust me one more time." Elena looked around at the cabin. The shattered windows, the bullet holes in the walls, the bodies on her floor. He was right. She couldn't stay here. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay." Leo's men moved with practiced efficiency. They loaded Julian and Elena into an armored SUV. Within minutes, they were speeding down the mountain road, leaving the cabin and the carnage behind. Elena sat in the back seat next to Julian, her mind reeling. Everything had happened so fast. 2 hours ago, she'd been making breakfast. Now she was fleeing with a Mafia boss and his private army. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Safe house in the city," Leo said from the driver's seat. "Somewhere Marco doesn't know about. We'll regroup there." "And then what?" Julian looked at her. "Then we end this, once and for all." Elena didn't speak for the rest of the drive. She stared out the window as the mountains gave way to foothills, then to suburbs, then to the city skyline. Seattle. She hadn't been here in 2 years, not since Lily's funeral. The safe house turned out to be a penthouse apartment in a glass tower downtown. Leo's men swept the place before letting them inside. It was modern, expensive, sterile. Nothing like Elena's warm cabin in the woods. "Make yourself comfortable," Julian said. "You're safe here." "Am I?" Elena turned on him. Now that the immediate danger had passed, anger was flooding in to replace the fear. "Your men just killed 3 people in my living room. There are probably more coming. How exactly am I safe?" "Because I won't let anything happen to you." "You can't promise that. You couldn't even protect yourself." Julian flinched like she'd slapped him. "You're right, I couldn't. Marco blindsided me because I trusted him, because I was weak, but I won't make that mistake again." Elena took a deep breath, trying to calm down. "I'm sorry, that wasn't fair. You didn't ask for any of this either." "No, but I brought it to your door anyway." Julian moved closer to her. "Elena, I meant what I said. I owe you my life. That means something in my world. It means I'll protect you with everything I have. I swear it." Before Elena could respond, Leo came back into the room. "Boss, we've got a situation. Marco's called a meeting. Tomorrow night. He's gathering all the family heads, probably planning to officially take over your position." "Where?" "The shipyards, Warehouse 12. That's his territory." Julian's expression hardened. "How many men does he have?" "At least 30, maybe more. He's been recruiting from the other families, promising them bigger cuts of the profits." "And how many do we have?" 15 loyal soldiers. Another dozen who might come over to our side if they see you're alive. But that's still not enough to take him head-on." Julian paced the room, thinking. Elena watched him transform from the wounded man she'd been caring for into something else, something dangerous and calculating. This was the real Julian Vane, the man who ran a criminal empire. "We can't win a straight fight," Julian said finally. "So we don't fight straight. We need to get inside that meeting, get close to Marco. Then we take him down before he knows what's happening." "How?" Leo asked. "Every entrance will be guarded. He'll have men checking everyone who comes in. The moment they see you, they'll start shooting." "Then I don't go through the front door." Julian turned to Leo. "What about the other bosses? Who's attending this meeting?" "Vincent Morty from Portland, the Chen brothers from Vancouver, and Dmitry Volkov from the Russian operations." "Volkov?" Julian smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. "He owes me. Big. I saved his daughter from a kidnapping 3 years ago. He swore a blood debt." "You think he'll help?" "I think he'll at least hear me out. Get him on the phone. Secure line." Leo nodded and left the room. Julian turned back to Elena. She was standing by the window, arms wrapped around herself, looking small and lost. "You should rest," he said gently. There's a bedroom down the hall. Lock the door if it makes you feel safer. I don't think I can sleep. Try anyway. Tomorrow is going to be difficult. Elena wanted to ask what he meant by that, but part of her didn't want to know. She was already in too deep, seeing too much of a world she'd never wanted to be part of. She went to the bedroom and lay down on the bed, still fully clothed. Her mind was racing. She kept seeing those men in her cabin. The gunshots. The blood. Julian on his knees with a gun to his head. And underneath it all, a question she didn't want to examine too closely. Why did she care so much? Why did the thought of Julian dying make her chest ache? He was a criminal. A killer, probably. She should be trying to get away from him, not worrying about his safety. But she'd seen the other side of him too. The man who mourned his wife, who spoke softly about loss and grief, who looked at her like she was something precious, something worth protecting. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. Eventually, exhaustion won. Elena fell into a restless sleep filled with nightmares of bullets and blood. She woke to voices in the living room. Male voices speaking in low, urgent tones. She checked her phone. It was late afternoon. She'd slept for hours. Elena got up and crept to the bedroom door, opening it a crack. She could see Julian and Leo standing with another man. This one was older, gray-haired, with a thick accent she couldn't quite place. "You ask much, Julian Vane," the older man was saying. "Marco has made promises, offers of territory. Why should I risk that for you?" "Because Marco is a traitor and a coward," Julian said flatly. "He shot me in the back, killed my driver. Do you really think he'll honor any promises he makes? The moment he consolidates power, he'll come for all of you, take what he wants. You know how this works, Dmitri." The older man, Dmitri, nodded slowly. "This is true. Marco is ambitious, too ambitious, but still to go against him now. You owe me a blood debt. I saved Katia's life, or have you forgotten?" "I forget nothing." Dimitri's voice hardened. "Very well, I will help, but not with soldiers. I cannot afford open war with Marco, not yet. I don't need soldiers, I need access to the meeting. Can you do that?" Dmitri considered this. "Perhaps. Marco expects me to bring a woman, my new mistress, he thinks. Some arm candy to show off my status. If you were to provide someone who could play that role." "No," Julian's voice was sharp. "Absolutely not, too dangerous." "Then I cannot help you. Those are the terms." Elena pushed open the door and stepped out. All three men turned to stare at her. "I'll do it," she said. Julian's face went dark. "Elena, no, you don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying. You need to get into that meeting. This is how you do it. I can pretend to be his mistress or girlfriend or whatever. I can get you inside. These are killers, dangerous men. If they figure out who you are, what you've done, they'll execute you on the spot. Then we better make sure they don't figure it out." Elena walked forward, her chin raised. She was terrified, but she wasn't going to show it. "I'm doing this, Julian. You can't stop me." "Why? Why would you risk your life for me?" Elena met his eyes. "Because you saved mine back at the cabin. When those men came, you tried to protect me. You were willing to die to keep me safe. Now it's my turn." There was a long silence. Then Dmitri chuckled. "She has spirit, this one. I like her. Very well. I will provide clothes, jewelry, everything she needs to look the part. But Julian, you must understand. Once she walks into that warehouse, she is on her own. I cannot protect her without revealing my hand." "I understand," Julian said quietly. His eyes never left Elena's face. "But I can protect her. I will protect her." The next 12 hours were a blur. Dmitri brought a team of stylists to the penthouse. They transformed Elena from a mountain hermit into something else entirely. They cut and styled her hair, did her makeup, dressed her in a designer gown that probably cost more than her car. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back was sophisticated, cold, dangerous, perfect. Julian came to find her as she was putting in diamond earrings. He stopped in the doorway, just staring. "What?" Elena asked. "You look different." "That's the point." "I know, it's just," he trailed off, shaking his head. "Be careful tonight. Marco is smart. If he suspects anything, if he thinks you're not who you claim to be, he'll kill you. He won't hesitate." "I know. There's still time to back out. We can find another way." Elena turned to face him. "There is no other way. You said it yourself. This is the only chance to get close to him, so we take it." Julian crossed the room and took her hands in his. His grip was warm, solid. "When you get inside, stay close to Dmitri. Don't talk unless you have to. Don't draw attention to yourself. And when things go bad, and they will go bad, you run. You get out of there as fast as you can. Promise me." "I promise." "I mean it, Elena. Your life is worth more than this. More than revenge, more than anything." Elena felt her breath catch. The way he was looking at her, the intensity in his eyes, it made her heart race. "Julian." He leaned in and kissed her. It was soft, gentle, completely at odds with the violence that surrounded them. Elena's eyes fluttered closed. For just a moment she let herself forget about the danger, the fear, the impossible situation they were in. She just felt. When they pulled apart, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "Come back to me," he whispered. "Whatever happens tonight, you come back to me." "I will." An hour later, Elena was in the back of a limousine with Dmitri. The older man had barely spoken to her since they left the penthouse. Now, as they approached the shipyards, he finally turned to her. "You understand what you must do?" he asked. "Stay quiet, look pretty, don't cause trouble. More than that, you must be believable. Marco is suspicious by nature. He will be watching everyone, looking for threats. You must convince him you are nothing, a decoration, not worth his attention." "I can do that." "I hope so, for both our sakes." Dmitri looked out the window. "We are here." The warehouse was massive, lit by harsh floodlights that cut through the darkness. Black SUVs and expensive cars were parked everywhere. Men in suits stood at every entrance, their hands resting on concealed weapons. The limousine pulled up to the main entrance. A guard opened the door and Dmitri stepped out. He offered his hand to Elena. She took it and emerged from the car, channeling every bit of confidence she could muster. The guard looked her up and down, his eyes cold and assessing. Then he nodded and stepped aside. They were in. The inside of the warehouse had been transformed. Tables were set up in a wide circle, expensive liquor and food laid out like some kind of twisted banquet. Men in suits stood around, talking in low voices. And in the center of it all, sitting at the head table like a king on a throne, was Marco. Elena recognized him immediately. He was handsome in a cruel way, with sharp features and darker hair slicked back from his face. He was laughing at something one of his men had said, completely at ease. This was his moment of triumph. He thought he'd won. Dmitri led Elena to a table and pulled out a chair for her. She sat, keeping her eyes downcast like she'd been told. Just another pretty face, nothing to worry about. Marco stood up, raising a glass. "Gentlemen, thank you all for coming. I know this meeting was called under unfortunate circumstances. The death of Julian Vane was a tragedy. He was a great leader, a true visionary." Elena's hands clenched in her lap. The bastard was eulogizing the man he'd tried to murder. "But life goes on," Marco continued. "The Vane family needs leadership, strong leadership, and I'm here to provide that, with your support, of course. Together, we can make this organization stronger than it's ever been, more profitable, more powerful." The other bosses nodded, some more enthusiastically than others. Elena scanned the room, looking for Julian. Where was he? The plan was for him to get inside during Marco's speech while everyone was distracted, but she didn't see him anywhere. Marco sat back down and the meeting continued. Business was discussed, territory divisions, Profit shares. Elena tuned it out, her heart pounding. Something was wrong. Julian should have been here by now. Then she saw movement in the shadows near the back of the warehouse. A figure, moving silently between the stacked crates and equipment. Her breath caught. Julian. He was dressed all in black, a gun in his hand. Behind him she could see Leo and 3 other men. They were spreading out, taking positions around the room. None of Marco's guards had noticed yet. They were all focused on the meeting. Elena forced herself to stay calm, to keep her expression bored and empty, just another decoration. Marco was still talking. Now there's the matter of the Portland operation. Vincent, I believe you had concerns about the distribution routes. One of the other bosses started to respond, but he never got the chance to finish. Julian stepped out of the shadows and raised his gun. The only concern, he said clearly, is the traitor sitting at the head of the table. The room exploded into chaos. Marco's men went for their weapons. Julian's team opened fire. Elena threw herself under the table as bullets started flying. She heard screaming, shouting, the deafening crack of gunfire. Through the legs of the table, she could see men falling, blood spreading across the concrete floor. Then a hand grabbed her arm. She nearly screamed before she realized it was Leo. "Come on," he yelled over the noise. "We have to get you out of here." "What about Julian?" "He can handle himself. Move." Leo dragged her out from under the table and toward the back exit. Elena looked over her shoulder and saw Julian. He was fighting hand to hand with one of Marco's men, moving with a lethal grace that took her breath away. Even injured, even outnumbered, he was winning. But then she saw Marco. He was backing toward a side door, a gun in his hand, his eyes locked on Julian. He raised the weapon. "Julian," Elena screamed, "behind you." Julian spun. His gun came up. For a frozen moment, the 2 men stared at each other. Former brothers, former friends, now enemies to the death. Marco fired first. The bullet caught Julian in the chest. He staggered backward, his own shot going wide. Elena felt her heart stop. No, not again. She couldn't lose someone else. She couldn't. But Julian didn't fall. He looked down at his chest, then back up at Marco, and he smiled. "Body armor," he said. "I learned from last time." Then he fired 3 times in quick succession. All 3 bullets hit Marco's center mass. The traitor went down, blood spreading across his expensive white shirt. Julian walked over to where Marco lay gasping. He knelt down beside him. "You should have made sure I was dead," Julian said quietly. "Now you get to watch everything you tried to steal slip away." Marco tried to speak, but only blood came out. A moment later, his eyes went empty. The gunfire had stopped. Julian's men had taken control of the warehouse. The other bosses were standing with their hands raised, smart enough to know when they'd lost. Julian stood up and turned to face them. "Marco Santini is dead," he announced. "He was a traitor and a coward. Anyone who wants to dispute my claim to leadership of the Vane family can speak now." Silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Good. Julian looked around until he found Elena. She was still standing with Leo near the back exit, her dress torn and dirty. Their eyes met across the warehouse. He started walking toward her. Then he was running. Elena ran too, closing the distance between them. When they collided, Julian wrapped his arms around her and held on like she was the only real thing in the world. "You're okay," he whispered into her hair. "Thank God you're okay." "So are you, I thought, when he shot you." "I know, I'm sorry. I should have told you about the vest." Elena pulled back to look at his face. There was blood on his cheek, a cut above his eye, but he was alive, he was whole. "It's over?" she asked. "It's over." Around them, Julian's men were securing the warehouse. The other bosses were being escorted out, presumably to spread the word that Julian Vane had returned from the dead and reclaimed his throne. It was over. But for Elena, it felt like something was just beginning. The weeks that followed were strange. Julian insisted she stay at his penthouse while things settled down. It was safer, he said. Marco's remaining loyalists were being rounded up, but until every threat was eliminated, Elena needed protection. She didn't argue. The truth was she didn't want to leave. Somewhere between pulling bullets out of Julian's body and storming a Mafia warehouse, she'd fallen for him. It was insane. It was dangerous. It went against everything logical in her brain. But it was real. Julian felt it too. She could see it in the way he looked at her, the way he found excuses to be near her. They danced around it for days, neither willing to be the first to acknowledge what was happening. Until one night when Elena found Julian on the penthouse balcony, staring out at the city lights. She walked up beside him. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much on my mind. Want to talk about it?" Julian turned to her. "Elena, I need to tell you something, before this goes any further, before I do something I can't take back." "Okay. I'm not a good man. I've done things, terrible things, in the name of protecting my family and my business. I've hurt people. I've killed people. I live in a world where violence is currency and trust is a liability, and I can't change that. This is who I am." Elena reached out and took his hand. "I know who you are, Julian. I knew it from the moment I found you bleeding on that road, and I chose to save you anyway." "Why?" "Because underneath all of that, underneath the violence and the danger, I see someone who's just trying to survive, just like me. We're both broken, Julian. We've both lost people we loved. But maybe we can be broken together. Maybe that's enough." Julian cupped her face in his hands. "You deserve better than this, better than me." "Maybe, but you're what I want." He kissed her then, deep and desperate. Elena kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it. All the fear, the hope, the impossible love that had grown between them. When they finally broke apart, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Not because it's safer, not because you owe me, but because you want to stay with me." "Yes," Elena said simply. "Yes." 2 years passed. Elena never went back to the cabin. Julian had his men pack up her things and put the property up for sale. It belonged to another life, another version of herself. She moved into the penthouse permanently. It took time to adjust to Julian's world. The constant security, the business meetings where violence was discussed as casually as stock prices, the reality of loving a man who lived outside the law. But Julian was changing too. With Marco gone and his position secure, he started shifting the family business toward more legitimate ventures. It would take years, maybe decades, to fully clean up the operation. But he was trying. For her. For the future they were building together. Elena went back to medicine, but in a different way. She opened a free clinic in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods, using Julian's money to provide care for people who couldn't afford it. It felt good, like she was finally doing something meaningful with her life again. And through it all, her relationship with Julian deepened. They learned each other, healed each other, built something real out of the violence and chaos that had brought them together. Now, Elena stood in a nursery painted soft yellow, looking down at the tiny life they'd created. The baby was sleeping peacefully, her little chest rising and falling in steady breaths. Julian came up behind Elena and wrapped his arms around her waist. "She's perfect," he murmured. "She really is." Elena leaned back against him. "Are you sure about the name?" "Absolutely. Lily Cross Vane. It honors both of you. The sister you lost and the life you saved by finding me on that road." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. She'd cried when she first suggested the name, and Julian had immediately agreed. It felt like closure, like Lily's memory would live on in this new life, this new beginning. "I never thought I'd be here," she said quietly. 2 years ago, I was hiding in the mountains trying to forget how to feel. And now you're a mother, a doctor, and the wife of a former criminal trying very hard to go straight. Elena laughed. Former criminal, is that what we're calling it? We're working on it. Julian turned her around to face him. I mean it, Elena. I'm getting out. Another year, maybe two, and the family business will be completely legitimate. I promised you that. I'm keeping that promise. I know you are. Elena kissed him softly. And I'll be right here with you, every step of the way. Behind them, baby Lily made a soft sound in her sleep. They both turned to look at her, this miracle they'd made together. She's going to have a good life, Julian said. Safe, peaceful, nothing like what we went through. No mafia bosses bleeding out on roads. Definitely not. No warehouse shootouts. Absolutely not. No danger at all. Julian smiled. Well, maybe a little danger. We are her parents after all. Boring was never really our style. Elena laughed and leaned against him, watching their daughter sleep. Outside the window, the city glowed with light. Somewhere out there, Julian's past still lingered. There were still threats, still enemies, still the weight of everything he'd done. But here in this room there was only love, only family, only the future they were building together, one day at a time. Elena thought back to that stormy night 2 years ago, the moment she'd seen a dying man on the road and made the choice to save him. It had changed everything, destroyed her old life, thrown her into a world of violence she'd never wanted to see. But it had also given her this love, this family, this second chance at happiness. She'd saved Julian Vane that night, but in the end, he'd saved her right back. And that, Elena thought as she held her daughter and her husband close, was worth every risk, every moment of fear, every impossible choice that had led them here. They were survivors, both of them, and now they were so much more. They were home. Thank you for watching this thrilling story of love born from danger. If you found a dying stranger on the road, would you stop to help or keep driving? What would you have done in Elena's situation? Comment your answer and your location below. Subscribe now for more incredible stories like this one.